So, something different. Are you somewhat confused about last week's shock reassessment of the AstraZeneca vaccine? Now, I've met people over the weekend who are, but I've met more people under 50 whose intentions have not budged, despite the warning to take the Pfizer vaccine instead. One of the experts we can rely on to decipher what these developments mean is Professor Peter Collignon from the Australian National University. Peter, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
So the government is not making it compulsory for under 50s to avoid the AstraZeneca vaccine, right? We've got to get that point clear to our viewers.
Yeah, look, it's just suggested if you're under the age of 50 that you take advice before which vaccine you receive. Now, we need to put this in perspective. These unusual blood clots are occurring, particularly in Germany and Scandinavia, rather than Britain, where more of the vaccine's been given. And it appears maybe 1 in 200,000 people may get this very unusual form where you get clotting in either the veins around your brain or in your abdomen. And some of those lead to death. But overall, even if it does lead to complications, and it's not absolutely clear that it's absolutely associated, but there's, the preliminary evidence looks that way, your risk of death is maybe 1 in a million from this sort of complication. Mm-hmm. Now, you've got to put that in perspective if you get the virus. If you're over the age of 80, it's probably a 1 in 10 chance that you'll, die from the result of the infection. And even over the age of 70, it's probably at least 1 in 100. So if you're in a situation where you might get COVID, the benefits from the vaccine so far outweigh the risk that you'd be silly not to have it. And yes, if you're under the age of 50 and you're in a country like Australia that doesn't have any spread of COVID, well, yeah, you may be able to reassess, and are there other ones that you could have if they're available? But you've got to remember, the vast majority of under 50-year-olds are not going to be able to get a vaccine anyway with our rollout for another 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
So we've got a lot more time to get more data and really assess what the real risk is and, where it's at.
So if the immediate priority then, Peter, is to make sure the vulnerable, the aged care patient, the elderly are at least receiving one jab before winter sets upon us and we have this flu kind of season come upon us, we are still on track for that, aren't we?
Well, we are. I mean, people are making a big song and dance about, oh, look, we're supposed to have 4 million doses of vaccine, the AstraZeneca mainly, I might say, before the end of March. And that didn't happen. But the real reason is that Europe didn't let 3 million doses go out. And it's only now that we're producing it really in Australia in any numbers. So that, however, in Australia, in my view, is not a disaster. We do not have spread of the virus. We're unlikely to have widespread, spread of the virus. Well, I hope not even in winter, but not before that. And so we have got the opportunity to vaccinate the 6 or 7 million people who are most at risk if something goes wrong before winter starts or, the early winter. And remember, I mean, it's a bit hard to believe, but 1 dose of the vaccine even seems to protect you, well over 90%. And some people are saying 100% against death and being admitted to hospital. Now, even if it's a 90% only improvement, that is a huge benefit for us. And this is with a vaccine that is in the same order of side effects that most other drugs and vaccines we have. This rare side effect occurs, but so do lots of others with lots of drugs. There's a drug we give frequently in hospitals called heparin. And it seems this unusual manifestation is similar to, what happens with that. And we give, millions of doses of that out frequently, probably every month around Australia. And yes, we accept there's a complication. That's the same with this. Now, if you're in a risk group, meaning you're above the age of 50 with a medical condition, or you're above the age of 70, please go and get vaccinated. Hopefully we'll never have much spread of COVID again in Australia, but if we do, you will be protected to a very large degree from dying or getting very sick with COVID. So please go ahead. And I think all this hoo-ha about this vaccine is better than that. The reality is the other alternative, we got the Pfizer one, we can't get, tens of millions of doses overnight. And it has a side effect of a major allergic reaction in some people more as well. So every vaccine has pluses and minuses, but both the vaccines we've got available at the moment are very good at stopping you dying and very good at stopping you getting very sick from COVID. So if you're in those risk groups, please get vaccinated as soon as you can get an appointment to be done.
All right. There are some reports today, Professor, about some GPs, now that we've got a rider on the AstraZeneca vaccine, some GPs being a little bit timid about advising their patients to take AstraZeneca because they're afraid of being sued. Given the information that they have, that Australia has been given by the Chief Medical Officer, is that still possible?
Well, I think anything's possible with the legal profession, but if you ask me if it's reasonable or likely to succeed, I would think it shouldn't be. I mean, it's a bit hard for everybody not to know about this side effect now, given, it's so far in the media. And again, the risk of this, particularly if you're over the age of 70, is, very low. It's much lower than if you're a 40-year-old, for instance. And the risk of death so much is greater than the risk of this side effect. Look, every vaccine we give, whether it's a flu vaccine, whether it's drugs we give as oral contraceptives, for instance, that have about a 1 in 1,000 chance of causing clots, different ones. But every drug we have has side effects. Some are very rare. The serious ones are very rare because otherwise they're not on the market. But this drug, for people over the age of 70 or people over the age of 50 with medical condition, the benefits so far outweigh the risk that, you don't need much of a conversation to really be able to see that.
Yes, I know what I'll be doing. I'll be taking the jab. I'm sure you will be as well. Thank you so much for your time, Professor. Much appreciated.
Okay, thank you.